In this episode of The Lucy Show, Lucy, once again brought to life by Lucille Ball with her signature mix of confidence, panic, and unstoppable energy, accidentally finds herself pulled into a situation involving what she believes is a major opportunity to prove that she is sophisticated, responsible, and capable of handling something far beyond her normal duties at the bank. And naturally, the entire thing begins with a misunderstanding so small that it could have been cleared up in 30 seconds if Lucy had simply asked one direct question, but because she immediately jumps to conclusions, she instead creates an entire fantasy around the situation, convincing herself that she has stumbled into something extremely important and that if she plays her cards right, she could finally impress everyone around her, especially Mr. Mooney, whose approval she continues chasing despite years of evidence suggesting that trying to hard around him always ends badly. And from the moment Lucy commits herself to this idea, the episode launches into that classic rhythm of escalating chaos. As she begins over-preparing for a role she does not actually understand, speaking with exaggerated confidence while secretly improvising almost every detail, and dragging Mary Jane into the situation despite clear warnings that this is probably another disaster waiting to happen. But Lucy refuses to listen because in her mind caution is just negativity disguised as advice, and at first things surprisingly seem to go well, which is exactly what makes the eventual collapse even funnier, because Lucy's early success gives her a dangerous level of confidence, causing her to expand her involvement far beyond what was originally necessary, volunteering for extra responsibilities, making changes nobody asked for, and trying to improve systems that were functioning perfectly fine before she arrived. And slowly, the confusion starts spreading through the bank as people begin receiving mixed messages and inconsistent instructions. Though nobody fully realizes Lucy is responsible yet because she moves so quickly between different conversations that it becomes difficult to trace the chaos back to its source. And this allows her to continue operating under the illusion that she still has everything under control even while the situation quietly deteriorates around her, and the comedy becomes increasingly physical as Lucy is forced to juggle multiple lies and improvisations simultaneously, hiding evidence of mistakes, changing outfits or props at the last second, sneaking around corners to avoid being caught contradicting herself, and constantly repositioning herself before anyone can ask too many questions, creating a frantic momentum where every scene feels like it's seconds away from disaster. Yet Lucy somehow keeps surviving through pure determination and luck alone. And what makes the episode especially entertaining is the growing contrast between Lucy's confidence and everyone else's exhaustion. Because while she continues speaking as though she's orchestrating some brilliant plan, the people around her slowly begin realizing they are trapped inside a giant mess they do not fully understand. And as more characters become involved, the misunderstandings start colliding with each other in increasingly ridiculous ways, creating situations where Lucy has to maintain multiple fake explanations at once while desperately trying to prevent different groups of people from comparing information, which naturally becomes impossible the longer the episode continues. And eventually the pressure reaches a breaking point when an important moment arrives where all of Lucy's preparations are supposed to pay off. Except by now the original misunderstanding has mutated into something so complicated that nobody is entirely sure what is happening anymore, including Lucy herself, and the climax explodes into full comedic chaos as every hidden mistake suddenly becomes visible at once, and frantic attempts at damage control while Lucy sprints around trying to repair problems faster than they appear, only to accidentally create even larger problems with every new decision. And there's a brilliant sense of momentum during these scenes because the episode fully commits to the absurdity, allowing the chaos to grow bigger and faster until it finally collapses under its own weight in front of everyone involved, leaving Lucy standing in the middle of the wreckage with that classic expression of horrified realization mixed with stubborn optimism. And for one brief moment, she actually seems ready to admit that maybe she should have slowed down and asked questions before taking over the entire situation. But of course, that self-awareness only lasts a few seconds before she begins rationalizing her behavior again, insisting that her ideas would have worked if just one or two tiny details had gone differently, which immediately frustrates Mr. Mooney even more because he realizes Lucy still hasn't truly learned anything. And yet beneath all the frustration, there's still genuine affection in how the other characters respond to her. Because despite all the chaos she causes, they understand that Lucy's intentions are almost always sincere. She really does want to help. She just has absolutely no sense of limits once she becomes excited about something, and that sincerity keeps the episode from feeling mean-spirited, allowing the resolution to settle into the show's usual warm comedic tone as everyone gradually cleans up the mess and returns to normal, while Lucy tries to restore her dignity by pretending she was actually testing everyone's ability to adapt under pressure. An explanation so ridiculous that even she barely believes it while saying it. And the final joke lands perfectly as Lucy overhears yet another conversation she clearly misunderstands and instantly becomes excited all over again, causing visible panic from everyone nearby who now knows exactly what that look on her face means, ending the episode with the comforting certainty that no matter how many disasters Lucy survives, she will always be ready to accidentally create another one the very next day. And even after the main catastrophe has finally burned itself out, the episode still squeezes more comedy from the aftermath because Lucy cannot emotionally accept the possibility that the entire disaster was completely her fault. So instead of quietly moving on, she begins subtly rewriting the story in her own head, convincing herself that the real problem was not her plan itself, but the fact that everyone else misunderstood her instructions, which immediately leads her into another round of trouble because once Lucy starts believing she was secretly right all along, it becomes impossible for her to stop trying to prove it. And before anyone realizes what's happening, she has already started giving follow-up explanations to different people around the bank, enthusiastically pointing out how certain parts of her idea actually worked beautifully before everything collapsed, while conveniently ignoring the fact that the collapse itself only happened because of her decisions in the first place. And the funniest part is how seriously Lucy presents these arguments, speaking with the confidence of someone delivering a brilliant business lecture even while standing inside the wreckage of her own failure, causing Mary Jane to look increasingly horrified as she realizes Lucy is somehow turning the disaster into a motivational speech. And naturally, this creates fresh confusion because the more Lucy explains her version of events, the more different stories begin circulating around the office until people genuinely stop understanding what the original problem even was anymore, and Mr. Mooney, who thought the nightmare was finally over, slowly realizes that Lucy is accidentally creating a second wave of chaos entirely through conversation alone, forcing him to repeatedly interrupt her before she can confuse anyone else. But Lucy treats every interruption as proof that her ideas are too advanced for people to appreciate properly, which only strengthens her determination to defend herself. And this leads to several hilarious scenes where she corners random employees and customers, trying to walk them step by step through her logic while they desperately search for excuses to escape the conversation. And at one point, Lucy becomes so committed to proving that her methods could have worked that she actually attempts to recreate part of the original plan on a much smaller scale as a demonstration, insisting that if people just watch carefully, they'll finally understand what she was trying to accomplish. And the second she says this, everyone nearby immediately panics because they know exactly how dangerous Lucy's demonstrations usually become. Yet, before anyone can stop her, she launches into another frantic sequence of improvised organization, rearranging objects, assigning tasks, and barking out instructions with total confidence despite the obvious warning signs surrounding her. And for a few brief moments, it almost looks like the miniature version might actually succeed, which is exactly what makes the next collapse so funny, because Lucy becomes overconfident too quickly and starts adding unnecessary complications. Again, turning a simple demonstration into another spiraling mess as people misunderstand instructions, items go missing, and Lucy herself begins forgetting which version of the plan she's currently trying to prove, causing her to contradict her earlier explanations in real time while desperately attempting to maintain authority over a situation that is visibly falling apart in front of her. And the energy during these scenes becomes wonderfully chaotic as Lucy races around trying to keep multiple disasters contained simultaneously, physically blocking people from discovering mistakes while loudly insisting that everything is proceeding perfectly, even as complete confusion erupts behind her. And eventually, the inevitable happens once again when the entire demonstration collapses in an even more ridiculous way than the original disaster, leaving Lucy frozen in stunned silence for a split second before the room explodes into overlapping reactions of frustration, disbelief, and exhausted laughter, because by now the absurdity has reached a level where people are too tired to even stay angry anymore, and Lucy, realizing she has somehow managed to fail twice in a row while trying to prove she didn't fail the first time, slowly attempts to regain composure by pretending the second collapse was intentional and designed to illustrate exactly what not to do. A desperate explanation so obviously ridiculous that even Mary Jane can barely keep a straight face listening to it, while Mr. Mooney looks like he's aging 10 years in real time just standing near her. And yet, despite all the destruction, Lucy still somehow retains her optimism, immediately shifting into brainstorming mode again and casually mentioning that with a few more adjustments she's sure the idea could still succeed someday, causing visible terror from everyone within hearing distance because they